Well, there's some birds caterwauling or chirping over there, angry about something, grousing about something. But this is something you usually see in the movies, a fallen tree over a crevasse. So I'm gonna walk on this and see how stable it is. It's Florida, so it's probably a whopping 20-foot drop across the crevasse, but I'll take what we can get. But before I do that, that vine has some flowers there. I think it's called a Thunbergia. I could be wrong, but the hummingbirds really dig it. And I'm sure they're pretty thirsty these days. Down here, look at that rock formation over there. That's pretty cool too. So I'll walk a little bit of this across the crevasse. I made it across a Florida crevasse with the what's the word for it, cliched fallen tree over it. So that's something new. It's kind of cool. Now hopefully I can make it back across to the other side, get back to the trail. Hey YouTubers, today is a swamp talk, but I'm going to call it a crevasse talk. Because I'm sitting here in this eroded canyon, which is kind of cool, and there's some water down there, which is awesome as well. And today's swamp / crevasse talk is titled Serendipity, which serendipity is where you come across some dumb luck that becomes very, very special and important and almost ironic in a lot of ways. And I happen to have had that experience this week. A former teacher of mine that I worked with for my whole career until about 2 years ago when he moved on to another school. We would teach American history. We would use this series called America's Century. It was narrated by Peter Jennings. And it had a videotape for, because it's about 20 years old, a videotape for every decade. So we would use it all the time, you know, for the 20s and World War I and World War II and the Great Depression. And it was always difficult to get to modern times. So there was one tape that was never opened, which was the 80s, because with history it's so hard to make it to modern times. And I actually made it to the 80s for the first time teaching American history. So I opened it up and I figured I'll go ahead and preview it and see, you know, if it's any good. And the former teacher, a friend of mine, who was also the department head for years, this collection was in his room for 20 years, or almost 20 years. And his father had died in Vietnam. And he actually even taught 1 year a class just on the Vietnam War. And what's ironic and serendipitous about the situation is, so a few days ago I put the tape in, and I just want to preview it to make sure it's something, you know, that I'd be able to use teaching. And the very first segment that comes up for the 80s is the dedication of the Vietnam War Memorial. And I'm watching it, and they scan up to a name. And out of 58,000 or 53,000, I forget the amount, I think it's 58,000 veterans who died, or soldiers that died in Vietnam. Out of 58,000 names, they pick my friend and teacher friend, they pick his dad's name. And then they have a soldier who was under his command talking about him in Vietnam. And it blew me away. And at first I was like, no, this can't be. So I had to go and confirm it on the internet. And what is ironic about this is that tape sat in my friend's classroom for almost 20 years and had this bit of information about his dad who died in Vietnam. And we just never got to the 80s to be able to watch it so someone would notice it. But I'm glad I finally found it, and I passed the information off to my friend. So when situations like Serendipity happen, dumb luck that open up amazing doors, take advantage of it and reach out and give that information to other people and things like that. That was really cool. It was a neat moment this week that I reflected on, that I hope and I'm sure good things will come from this. A little bit more information, about, for someone who's lost someone, you always want to know as much as you can about the people who are no longer with you. And maybe somehow you can contact this soldier and find out some more information about what his dad's life was, because he was a young child when his dad died in Vietnam. So serendipity, if it happens to you, take advantage of it. And if it's something that can be passed on to someone else, definitely do that. It's always good medicine. Serendipity is good medicine.